Complex relationship between craving and Chanda. A. Interplay between wholesome and unwholesome desires. Some people may counter here that the desire for good health is most likely a form of craving, because people want to be healthy and strong in order to experience pleasure to the utmost. This argument stems from an inaccurate interpretation. It does not accord with the Buddhist doctrine of analysis, vibhajavada, which encourages a clear and concise discrimination of causes, factors, stages, and conditions, rather than mixing up these factors, etc., and then analysing them in a jumbled way. A state of good health, absence of illness and ease, is inherently favourable and positive. What one then decides to do with this good health is another stage in the process. One may not be desiring pleasant sensations, but rather wish to rely on good health in order to perform kind deeds or to practice for the elimination of mental impurity. In general, people's thinking tends to be comprised of a mixture of factors, and it is important that one is able to distinguish them. At times this mixture of factors is very complicated. A person, for example, may think in this way: I will eat only enough and will thus become a strong, attractive and healthy person. This way of thinking can be divided into three separate parts. A. The person recognizes that the truly desirable result of eating is a healthy and strong body. B. The person's desire and contentment with this supportive state of good health is pure and unadulterated. And C. There is a desire to possess this strength and good health, for it to belong to me, to be recognized by others as a healthy person, or to identify with the good health and generate such thoughts as, may I become a beautiful person, I will be stronger than he, or I will be prettier than she. In this case, wholesome desire, chanda, and craving, tanha, overlap and accompany one another. Wholesome desire arises and is then followed by craving. This accords with the principle that goodness can be a condition for the bad. When the process of thinking arrives at this stage of craving and self-identification, it begins to breed suffering and diverse problems. For unawakened persons, this complexity is normal, and their acts of goodness can thus still create and increase suffering. The solution is to apply wise reflection and to establish mindfulness, clear comprehension, and wholesome desire, in order to bar or cut off ignorance and craving, and to prevent craving from taking advantage of wholesome desire. In the circumstance that craving has already arisen, one can try to reverse the process so that craving conditions wholesome desire, in accord with the principle that the unwholesome can be a condition for the good. For an ordinary person to apply these means of correction, it is already to reach an excellent level of spiritual development. B. Relying on wholesome desire. An attribute of craving that ought to be stressed one more time is that craving acts as a motivation or determining force whenever an action is a prerequisite for experiencing pleasure. And this attribute reveals the flip side of this process. When craving is unable to experience pleasure, it is unwilling to induce people to act. Indeed, it sometimes urges people in the opposite direction by inducing them to refrain from acting. even though the action would lead to a beneficial result. For example, when a person is ill, the body requires medicine in order to combat infection, remove toxins, or repair damaged organs. Since the medicine does not provide pleasurable sensations, craving urges the person to not take it. In this case, the person relies on wholesome desire, Chanda, for persuasion in taking the medicine. Occasionally, in times of acute sickness, one develops a lack of hunger and a lack of appetite for foods that craving normally finds delicious. Here, one does not eat even though that food would be beneficial. At such times, the craving for existence, bhavatanha, may be of no help. Occasionally, the craving for annihilation, bhavatanha, is dominant, giving rise to utter despair and such thoughts as, without pleasure life is meaningless, why should I go on living? This craving drives a person in an opposite direction, leading to a refusal to eat. In such circumstances, a person must wisely reflect on the objectives and benefits of food in order to establish wholesome desire and find the motivation to eat. The stronger the desire, the stronger is the mind. The person thus resists craving and eats with enthusiasm. Here one sees how wholesome desire supports effort and gives rise to concentration. Some sick people may not be able to generate wholesome desire themselves. Before they are willing to eat, they may require a friend to instill a fear of death and a wish for self-preservation. They may then take the medicine out of panic. When craving for existence is the motivating force, however, the mind is beclouded and agitated, unlike with wholesome desire, Chanda, in which case the mind is peaceful. This is because craving is tied up with ignorance. While wholesome desire springs from wisdom, this is because craving is tied up with ignorance, while wholesome desire springs from wisdom. C. Seeking gratification, escaping the unpleasant, and protecting the sense of self. When people are angry and hostile to the point of killing one another, the true reason for killing is not a wish for the other person's death. The death of an enemy is the same as the death of any other person, insofar as it offers no benefits to the perpetrator. The real reason for people to kill an enemy is that this is the best precondition for acquiring what they desire, to maintain self-security and self-importance, to escape from that which threatens the stability of the self, to separate themselves from what is unacceptable, or to cause the greatest imaginable harm and destruction to a disagreeable person. If they know that their enemy's continuation of life will not impact the stability of their self-identity, and they find another way other than killing to increase their self-importance, or they find a way to create more suffering for their enemy than by killing them, then they will refrain from killing and apply this other, more effective precondition for achieving their aims. If people are unable to kill or harm their enemy, unable to eliminate undesirable people or things, then it happens frequently that they think of killing themselves or want to die. In truth, they do not want to die. The real reason for thinking in this way is that when they are unable to find another means to escape from the undesirable people or things, killing themselves becomes the only avenue for escape. Take, for example, someone who wants to kill himself because he is lovesick. His loved one is marrying someone else, or because he has some horrible, untreatable disease. Both of these are undesirable conditions which he is unable to rectify or eliminate, and thus the only remaining way to escape is by suicide. If, however, someone else tells him that his beloved has not yet married and surely still loves him, or that there is a doctor who can most likely treat the illness, then he will renounce the wish to die immediately, because there is a more satisfactory provision to escape from this undesirable situation. A similar example is the savage practice in the interracial or intertribal warfare, in which the victors slay all surviving males of the vanquished side, including children and the elderly, but do not kill the young women, at least not immediately, but hold them captive to satisfy their pleasure. The victors do not gain any individual advantage by the genocide of their male enemies, but kill them out of a fear stemming from a wish to protect the stability of their collective identity. Killing is deemed the best method to maintain this stability. Abstaining from killing the young women does not result from any wish to preserve their life. What they desire is pleasure, which is obtained from these women, and the preservation of the women's lives is merely a precondition to indulge in this pleasure. D. Wholesome desire and loving kindness. This subject of desire is linked to the vital quality of loving kindness, metta, as well as to the other three divine abidings. An examination of loving kindness helps to clarify the meanings of tanha and chanda. The quality of metta is familiar to most Buddhists, but it does give rise to misunderstandings. Some common translations for metta are love, friendliness, well-wishing, and the desire for others to be happy and fortunate. These definitions seem straightforward, but confusion arises for some people in regard to the distinction between love that is metta and love that is unwholesome. Unwholesome love is usually referred to in Pali as sneha, which means love for a specific individual or selfish love. It leads to narrow-mindedness, attachment, and excitement and passion. This is the opposite to metta, pure love, which a person feels towards other human beings and all creatures as friends on this earth, companions in suffering, and companions in life and death. It is an all-inclusive and altruistic form of love which broadens, eases, and brightens the heart. The commentators were aware of this confusion and thus emphasized certain points in order to prevent misunderstanding. They explain that the advantage of metta is a reduction of ill will, while its disadvantage is that it can cause selfish love. They describe how the distant enemy of loving kindness is ill will, while the close enemy is lust, raga. People must be extremely cautious of lust. One moment of carelessness and it suddenly flares up. Sneha is a synonym for tanha, unwholesome love, which is the opposite of metta, is therefore love springing from or adulterated by craving. As stated earlier, the main characteristics of craving are a desire for pleasure and a desire for self-protection. The criterion, therefore, to decide whether love stems from craving or not is to see whether the love is a sincere wish for others' well-being, or whether it is a wish for others' well-being merely as a prerequisite to experience pleasure or to reinforce the stability of the self. People may claim to love another person, for instance their wife, husband or friend, and say that their love is so great and true that the other person's life is of equal value to their own. Later, however, following the course of time, things may change. The spouse's body, for example, may change and no longer be agreeable to the other partner's desires, or the spouse or friend may no longer support or provide a sense of security to the sense of self. The former love then fades or disappears. In this case, the person no longer recognizes the value of the other, no longer recognizes cherished and valued traits in the other person. This kind of love is not metta. It is merely love tainted by craving, or it is craving itself, which seizes the opportunity to take advantage of someone else's positive attributes, to pander to its own desires, or to reinforce a self-identity. While travelling in the countryside and seeing an enormous tree with overarching branches and lush green leaves, someone whose mind is expansive and appreciates the beauty of nature will delight in the splendour and magnificence of that tree, and wish for it to prosper and be free from danger. In that moment the mind is devoted and directed to the tree's well-being. One's thoughts are benevolent. They are not selfish, acquisitive or covetous. The mind delights in the healthy, natural state of the tree. This state of mind is wholesome, virtuous and peaceful. It is beneficial to that person and to others. The pleasure in witnessing the fulfillment of this tree, or the wish for it to exist in a state of completeness, is wholesome desire, Chanda. One can say that one feels good will towards the tree. In the same manner, we may see other people in good health, strong and at ease, and we delight in their well-being, wishing for them to be happy, healthy and free from illness. This state of mind radiates outwards and does not revolve around selfish concerns. This wish for other beings to exist in a state of happiness and fulfillment is wholesome desire, as it is expressed towards living creatures, and it is given the special designation as loving kindness metta.